It's all about conquering yourself. Know thyself. As I said, you're the director and you're the actor and you're the one who has to deal with the consequences. How can you make yourself content so that you can enjoy the journey and the destiny? That is what we all are here to do. There are four things that all of us are after. Everybody wants unconditional love, but that requires us to give it to ourselves first. Everybody would love to have an incredible optimum health, and that requires for you to love yourself enough to prioritize your health. Everybody wants abundance, but abundance truly is a personal thing. What is abundance? I mean, you can be a billionaire who doesn't have a schedule in your own hand. Every minute is calculated by somebody else, and it could look abundant, but are you really abundant? And then also self-expression. You want to make sure that while you're here, you are exuding your perfect self-expression. In order for you to have all of these things, you have to decide what your state of mind is and how can you create that.
Shehnaz, welcome back to the show. And that was a fun half an hour of trying to figure out how to get technology working in the world of AI and supposedly the utopia coming in the next 3 weeks. If you listen to YouTube, we can't even get a meeting started or a conversation.
Yeah, I do believe that the way things are going to continue go in the process is going to make us all have to rethink everything, right? Which is the reason it took us 30 minutes just to get on. And we had to change the tool. We had to change the platform. And you know what? That is a message by itself, is when something does not work, because you wanted it to work because you're paying for it. You pretty much have a method to the madness. You kind of use that platform. And the very fact, and we tried so many ways, right? Like we tried like more than 3 ways. And when something doesn't work, it means it's wanting you to hear yourself. Like you need to change something.
Or they need to change something.
You need to change something. Like you had to change it, right? Remember? And I had decided, because I even made a prayer when we made our last attempt. I said that, okay, universe, if this is meant to work, that you and I speak today, and we do have this, then please help us. And then I also got an idea in my head that if it doesn't work, I'm going to suggest to you this, which is what we're doing via Zoom. And look, Zoom solved all the problems from my perspective. We are able to hear each other.
Oh my God, you're able to hear, you're not echoing. You're able to get on.
Blessing. And I can actually hear you without having to worry about anything else. So to me, that was the solution from the beginning, but we had to go through the process to get here.
Well, it's interesting because we started before all the technical issues. The technical issues are there to begin with, but we're talking about process. And I guess, look, I'll let you lead into what you've been up to, but something that I've been, I guess, in my mind for the last 8 months has been this surrender to the process of the creations that I want to see in the world. So I'm quite, I wouldn't say I'm impatient, but when you know where you want to go and what you want to create, sometimes that process can be frustrating because it's not happening quickly enough, and there's still things from your older life or the older manifestations that you created, or let's put it in another language, your career or whatever it is still present. But actually, I've come to the realization that is on the path. So why am I trying to rush through it? Why am I trying to brush it aside? It's all this unfolding and actually having a bit more maturity and accepting that is part of the work, and that things will unfold as they need to.
Exactly, because it's not about the timing, it's about the alignment. So, and it's not about...
Shehnaz, sorry to break your thought, but can you break that down? Because that's quite profound. Can you break that down? Because people can hear, what does that mean for you, the alignment, not the timing?
So, like a lot of time we think about certain thing that everything has to take a certain amount of time for it to heal or for it to create. And of course, there's a time involved in everything. But more than time, it's an alignment. It's like, it's our intention, right? So what I'm saying is that, let's say that you have a vision and you believe that this is the way you're going to get to the vision. But the thing is, every single thing that we have accomplished in our life or achieved in our life has always made us grow. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the
Yeah.
growth comes with us not knowing all the ins and out of the how part of the story, right? So that is where the growth is. So when because we're continuously growing, whether we accept it or not, whether we agree with it or not, or whether we seek it or not, that is just the way our existence is. There's just no way one can, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you agree or not, it is the constant process. We are all in. So when I say alignment versus timing, I say that when you meet something that you're seeking, is partly because what you're seeking is seeking you. However, that alignment only occurs when both of you are ready to embrace that convergence. And that is applicable to whether it's a human or whether it's a place or whether it's a state of mind or whether it's a state of status, right? I mean, all of those things are the collapse that you're seeking. However, in order to get there, you have to be in alignment with it. Then it's like a plug and play. And I think that the art of living requires you to understand your role in the process.
If I think also for the things that when I was younger, not even younger, let's call it like 18 months ago, the things, well, I was technically younger, but yeah, the 18 month, but like I wasn't actually ready for the things that I'm now doing. I don't think I was necessarily ready to do them in the way that they deserved. For example, like would be, I'm writing now for a magazine doing this health and wellness section, which is really exciting. But up until, I find it really hard to look back at my life. Like, when you got previous mental states, it's hard to sort of analyze them. Well, I find it difficult. But I was definitely more embedded in the camp of, I still had within me a desire to be right, coming from the ego. Like, this is my viewpoint. I need to sort of, I wasn't aggressive with it, but I'd still sort of put it forth as, no, this is clearly the right direction. Whereas quite sort of recently, I'm a lot more open to being like, this is my viewpoint. I've looked at many other sides, take it or leave it, but I'm not pushing an agenda. And I think that's a far more cohesive and truthful way to approach things, particularly in a world now where we're looking at so much division, whether it's, I see a lot of the alternative media on YouTube, for example, and podcasts have become exactly the same as mainstream media. They're pushing polarity because it gets clicks. I can't even go on YouTube anymore because it's just so-and-so destroyed, this person's evil, and it's exactly the same as what the mainstream media, there's nowhere to turn because people are just so, and I think that's more of a business decision as opposed to necessarily the human believing that or the person believing that. But I certainly have come to the realization I want to offer the middle way as much as I possibly can, even though I have my own sort of, biases and all the things, and I'm flawed, I'm a human, all these other things. But so for me, it's really interesting. This has come about when I'm now ready to do it.
And I'm glad that you're thinking that way because, that is what I noticed because just a year ago, I realized that, okay, people were recognizing me and a lot of people were recommending me that I need to get more active on social media and do all these certain things and hire people to help me with the YouTube and other platforms. And people were seeking me to hire them. And I started thinking that the only reason people like me right now is because I'm authentic. And if I'm not authentic, first of all, I have to like me before I can worry about anybody else. And my whole thing is that if I'm not authentic, then what is left? Because and I 100% agree with you. I see so many people that I had known in the last 3 years, and they are really doing amazing. Like they have like huge followers, and they are sharing their perception of the life that they're living is just like heavenly, on the social media. And to me, I'm like, okay, more power to them. But I truly don't know what do they feel every day in their waking hours when they give themselves a chance to even feel their humanness. Because at the end of the day, when you're spending so much energy and time in selling a perception, no matter how incredible and ambitious you are, at the end of the day, it takes a toll on you.
Mm.
Well, it's not real. It's not reality. I see so much. Because look, I'm speaking from a place of, well, I've done this when I felt an inability to live my life in a way that I want to. I feel desperate in some way. I have gravitated towards platforms that offer, I'm going to call it salvation theology, where everything's, oh, it's going to be okay. You're going to be saved by, 5D consciousness. Aliens are going to come down and create the perfect life for you, or what? All of this language, and it makes you feel better in the moment. And it's exactly the same as religion has previously operated. It's New Age spirituality, but it's exactly like Christianity, like Jesus, the second coming is going to happen, or Buddhism, detach and all your problems will go away. And all these things, and I'm not discrediting, obviously, I'm not just putting a blanket over all of this stuff, because I think there's value in almost absolutely everything, even if you disagree with 99% of it. But it does not speak to authenticity, the difficulty of actually living, and or personal responsibility to change your circumstances. No one is coming to change your circumstances. You need to do that. And that doesn't look like angels from heaven. Sometimes that's just grinding it out, and it's bloody hard. But ultimately, those times are the times that when you do get to where you think you need to be, because that's always expanding as well. But let's say you get there, you look back and you're like, those times were the times which were actually the best times, because I discovered who I was.
Exactly. And yeah, it's like a dark night of the soul, and it can keep coming up if you keep leveling up, right? If you keep leveling up, you're going to go through different, because every single time you reach a goal, then you have to go through another level in the Jacob's ladder, right? So that is just what we're all here to do, whether you recognize it or not. It truly doesn't matter. And that's what I'm actually recognizing, is that we all would love, everybody wants the easy way out, right? Because to some extent we're all kind of like, I mean, at the end of the day, it is a hard life here, and the density can take a toll on you, especially when you're aware of the other dimensions and densities, and when you're aware that we shouldn't have to go through all these things like the way we do. But that, to me, can be a challenge for all of us, right? And they're saying, right, knowledge is sometimes knowledge can be a wisdom. However, sometimes we can get trapped with the knowledge that we have that not we can share with other people, right? So you feel a little bit alone, and you feel a little bit separated from the majority of the people, and that feeling makes it even more challenging to live in this world, right? To live in this physical dimension. But I rather live with that density and that realization, even though it's harsh, than live with some belief that somebody's selling that may not come true in your lifetime.
Well, do you want to live with truth or pretty lies? That's really ultimately
Exactly.
the thing.
Because I mean, right, because a lot of people do sell, either sell a perception or sell a dream, but then they kind of make you feel that you're going to be perfectly fine as long as you believe in that. And truly, if you are not believing in it, I mean, you believe in it up to the point when you realize that should you believe in it.
Shehnaz, I'm to the point where I just don't trust anybody online, anything. I've seen so many, and it's not to diminish what people are trying to achieve, but I trust myself. That's where I've gotten to. And I need to have somatic experience of something, or trial it, whatever it may be, a health and wellness product. I'm just not going to, there's so many, there's just so much intentional, not fraudulent behavior to sell you something, because everyone's trying to survive, and it's tough, and everyone's got a perception of how much money they need to make and all these things. I just don't see a lot of, and the most authentic people I know in my life are the people who are the least inclined to go public about the stuff that they believe. They just like.
Right now, everything we're talking about is something that anybody who's listening, unless they really want an authentic conversation, they'll be like, where these guys are going? I'm like, they're not selling anything positive. And maybe it sounds like it, but it's real.
No, it will be positive, because you'll become self-reliant, and that's the most positive. But we're not telling you, I'm not saying that's not easy. It's like getting fit's not necessarily easy. It takes discipline and commitment and all these things. But ultimately, you're going to fare better in the long run.
We're going in that whole storyline, right? So let's say that what what would I recommend people based on everything that I have been going through, and even I can hear you have been going through, is that the best thing for you to do a reality check is to look around what you have done, right? Like look around your life, look around where you're living, look around the people you're hanging out, look around what your day-to-day life looks like, and be very real about it. Like accept it, like understand it, accept it. And the people that you're going to all, like I always tell my boys, by the way, this is the exercise I do, always say that, like, let's assume that tomorrow is your last day. Tell me the name of the people you would call so that you can have the conversation with them, or they can come visit you if they're available. And it always makes people start thinking that, oh wow. And then you realize, right, like how many people truly do you feel that type of connection with, that you would call them if you are leaving Earth in one day?
That's a really beautiful practice. The only person I would call is my dog, but she doesn't come. So she just and she's not a great conversationalist. Oh, actually, she's not bad telepathically. She's looking at me right now. She's picked up on that. Yeah, no, well, we're so caught up in all this stuff that we think is important and frivolous, and look, some of it may be necessary, obviously, to live our lives day to day in terms of, let's call it a work perspective. But ultimately, investing time, it just really clarifies who you really want to invest your time in and give that precious gift of your vulnerability and your love to, because they're gifts and they're earned.
Exactly. And you come alone, I mean, you leave alone, and the journey is a solo journey, and you interact with a lot of interactions in the form of people, places, and experiences. But at the end of the day, this is your movie, and you are the director and the actor.
Have you explored much? I've only sort of recently been diving into Byron Katie's work on loving what is. Have you? I found some of her processes really fantastic. They're so easy.
Crazy, yeah. No, there was a time when I was completely listening to all her audios, and I loved her method. And it's a great tool, right? It's a great tool. Like I've created my own tool over the years because I've gone through so many different trainings and stuff. And what I've learned about me is that the only thing works for me is that when I tailor something according to my understanding, right? Which is because then it becomes my own. So right now, one of the things I would encourage everybody to consider doing is that, whether you use Byron Katie or use anybody else, but affirmation does work, and they're very, very powerful. You have to believe in it, of course. So that is the reason I create my own affirmation, because when I create my own affirmation, it's my words, right? It's my way of thinking, my way of perceiving. So it makes it so much easy for me to believe in it. And one of my goals is to share the affirmation that I'm going to create for me through my next book.
Yeah. Well, the process of let's delve into that, because I want to delve into, because people will say many people have tried affirmations and they don't work, but I think it harks back to the genesis of this conversation, to do with process, self-belief, and really embodying that. But can I take you, just because this is all going to dovetail back into that, but your thoughts on AI and to what I actually think we look. Firstly, I'll get your broad thoughts on it, but the core of it that I see wrong, or the problem with AI, is the complete removal of process for people. So you see people outsourcing all kinds of potentially what could be a learning or generative act, such as writing an email. And look, I do it sometimes to work as well. It just speeds up the process. There's that word. But you actually don't know how people are using these tools, but they don't know how they got from A to B. And that's only going to get larger and larger. Whereas we learn as human beings from the process of going from A to B. So if you completely remove that, what do we have left as a human? Like, where are we headed, and why do we not want to be human beings anymore? Like, so we can sit around and sit on the beach and drink margarita, like that usual, that platitude that people give if you tell them what would you do if you had lots of money. Well, I'd sit on the beach. Really? For how long? Like,
Thing is that even if you do it, at the end of the day, I think that with the way we are human, even if we do something that we really, really think that is the best thing one can do all day long, drink margarita or do whatever, or be on the ocean or make love or do whatever your example of heaven is, let's say, if you are doing that continuously day in and day out, you're going to get bored with that heaven as well. Because that's just the way we are. We're constantly needing, because the way we appreciate something is through comparison.
it's
Contrast. Yeah.
We do live in a binary world, right? Especially in the 3D world, and I think that as we go into the 4D and 5D, then the binary aspect disappears, and then it's all about oneness. But when you live in a oneness, you're no longer seeking all the thing that you were seeking when you were living in a binary world. So you see, it changes. So coming back to the AI, right? But I'll just come back to the AI.
Oh, no. Can I double tap it just on that binary on because that's a topic. I want to be. So for me, I don't feel that enlightenment is the end result for me. Like, is the end result of life. I feel more like my being a human being is by nature generative and creative, and otherwise, why would I be here other than to generate and create? And of course, there's elements of that you create better things when your consciousness expands. But to my mind, like, I will reach enlightenment when I die. Like, there'll be this field of awareness that will completely open up. And right now, I don't feel like I just feel there's a lot of talk about the end goal being like, let's transcend this life, and it's like, yeah, but this life is magical. Like, why are we continually rushing not to be who we are, as opposed to, like, am I framing that wrong? Like, is there something, what's your view on that? If that's even a question. Sorry, it was more a statement.
About it, it's all about conquering yourself, right? Know thyself.
Yes.
Right? So at the end of the day, as I said, you're the director and you're the actor and you're the one who has to deal with the consequences. So how can you make yourself content so that you can enjoy the journey and the destiny, right? That is what we all are here to do. I mean, there are 4 things, right, that all of us are after. So everybody wants unconditional love, but that requires us to give it to ourselves first, right? Everybody would love to have an incredible optimum health. Every single person would want it. And that requires also, again, for you to love yourself enough to prioritize your health, right? Everybody wants abundance, but abundance truly is a personal thing, right? Because what is abundance? I mean, you can be a billionaire who doesn't have a schedule in your own hand. Every minute is calculated by somebody else, and it could look abundant from somebody else's perspective, but are you really abundant, right? So now that's a complete personal choice there also. And then also self-expression, right? Like, you want to make sure that while you're here, you are exuding your perfect self-expression. And to me, in order for you to have all of these things in order, you have to decide what your state of mind is and how can you create that. Because if you think about it, it's all about a state of mind, right? So you can be a monk and you can be perfectly content. And other people may say that, oh, you are just a monk and you're not even doing anything worldly, which is true. But then as long as you're content, it doesn't really matter, does it?
No.
So to me, I think that should be the goal, is that you are content. Because if you're content, then you're going to be vibrating with the optimum self-expression, right? And then if I'm content, I'll be vibrating at the optimum self-expression. You and I are going to meet partly because our vibration and frequency will match. And we are going to multiply this optimum self-expression. And then we're going to create more and more people who are going to be along the same line. And then ultimately, it's going to make the heaven on earth. That is just the way I see it, right? So to me, the definition of community starts from you, because you are the community first. And if you can do it good, then ultimately your law of attraction and your law of vibration will make you make a Vesica Pisces with another person. And then, the 2 of you will turn into 3, and 3 will turn into 4, and that's how you're going to make a flower of life pattern, right? So did I answer your question?
Oh no,
Oh no,
it
it
makes me
makes me
think
think
of
of
you've
you've
seen
seen
obviously, have
obviously
you
have you
seen
seen Vader
Austin's
Austin's
work
work
on the
the
entrainment to the
to the
higher
higher
frequency,
frequency
where
where
she
she
did,
did
I
I
believe
believe
she
she
did it
did
with
it with
eggs.
eggs.
So she
So she
put an
put an
organic
organic
egg,
egg
and then
and
she
then
got
she got
caged
caged
awful
awful
eggs,
eggs.
and she
And she
put
put
the
the
this
this
is
is
pains me
pains me
because
because
I'm a
I'm a
vegan.
vegan.
It's
It's
okay.
okay.
But
But
she
she
put
put
the
the
much
much
better
better
egg,
egg
or
or
the
the
organic
organic
egg,
egg
and then
and then
put
put
the
the
caged
caged
eggs
eggs
around
around
in
in
close
close
proximity
proximity
to it,
to it
and
and
then
then
left them
left
for
them for
24
24
hours.
hours.
And
And
all of
all
the
of the
caged
caged
eggs
eggs
actually
actually
entrain
entrain
themselves to
themselves
the
to the
higher
high
frequency
frequency
of
of
the
the
organic
organic
egg. So
egg.
when
So
she
when she
cracked them
cracked them
open,
open,
they
they
had the
had the
composition of
composition
the
of the
organic
organic
egg.
egg.
And
And
this
this
extrapolated
extrapolated
outwards
outwards
depending
depending
on
on
how
how
close
close
the
the
caged
caged
eggs
eggs
were
were
to the
to the
organic
organic
egg.
egg.
And
And
she's
she's
done a
done a
lot of
lot of
experiments with
experiments with
water,
water,
so with the same thesis
thesis
of
of
structured,
structured,
beautiful
beautiful
crystalline
crystalline
crystallography in
crystallography
the
in the
water.
water.
Put
Put
sick
sick
tap
tap
water
water
in a
in a
dish
dish
next to
next
it,
to it.
and the
And the
sick
sick
tap
tap
water
water
entrains to
entrains
the
to the
crystalline
crystalline
structure
structure
of the
of the
higher
higher
frequency.
frequency.
So
So
when you're
when you're
talking
talking
about
about
human
human
beings
beings
being
being
content
content
and
and
actually
actually
authentic and
authentic and
doing the
doing the
thing that
thing
they
that they
love,
love,
whatever
whatever
that
that
may
may
be,
be,
it
it
doesn't
doesn't
matter
matter
because
because
that
that
frequency is
frequency is
what
what
echoes
echoes
outwards, and
outwards,
then
and then
you
you
attract more
attract more
people, and
people,
then
and then
others
others
around them
around
will
them will
feel that
feel that
frequency,
frequency
and we
and
continually
continually
move
move
upwards in
upwards in
that
that
virtuous
virtuous
cycle. And
cycle.
the
And the
same is
same is
true
true
on the
on the
entropy
entropy
end
end
of
of
moving
moving
downward
downward
into
into
hell.
hell.
And
And
you
you
notice it
notice it
yourself
yourself
when
when
you're in a
you're in a
bad
bad
mood,
mood,
or
or
if I'm
if I'm
having
having
terrible
terrible
thoughts
thoughts
about,
about,
I'm
I'm
frustrated
frustrated
basically, so
basically,
I
so I
start
start
taking
taking
that
that
out
out
on
on
people
people
who are
who are
driving
driving
too
too
slowly
slowly
as
as
I
I
perceive it
perceive
in
it in
front of
front
me.
of me.
And
And
even if
even
I'm
if I'm
not
not
doing
doing
anything,
anything,
I'm
I'm
holding that
holding that
frequency of
frequency of
frustration.
frustration.
And
And
it's
it's
really
really
interesting. I'll
interesting. I'll
go out
go
and
out
get
and get
a
a
drink,
drink,
get
get
a
a
coffee
coffee
somewhere,
somewhere,
and you
and
can
you can
feel that
feel that
people
people
are
are
sort of
sort of
moving
moving
away
away
from
from
you
you
because you
because you
have that
have that
energy.
energy.
And
And
the
the
inverse
inverse
is
is
true.
true.
And it's
And it's
becoming
becoming
conscious.
conscious.
Like
Like
I've
I've
become
become
much more
much more
conscious of
conscious
like,
of like,
why am
why
I
am I
doing
doing
damage
damage
cellularly to
cellularly
my
to my
body
body
and
and
putting this
putting this
out there
out there
because
because
I
I
can't
can't
mitigate
mitigate
my
my
emotional
emotional
state,
state,
or it
or it
needs to
needs to
look
look
like
like
this or
this or
look
look
like
like
that.
that.
So
So
it
it
comes
comes
again
again
back
back
to
to
being a
being a
bit
bit
more
more
accepting of
accepting of
what's on
what's
the
on the
path.
path.
Right. And it comes with the self awareness, right? So, and the fact that you're self aware means that you're going to do good in the process. Because even if you don't feel good, but you're aware that you're not feeling good, right away, you have kind of shifted your frequency.
Yeah, it's catching it. It's catching it early as opposed to letting it ruining your day. And realizing you have a choice. Like I had it yesterday where I felt it wasn't. It was actually to do with technology again. I was trying to edit a podcast, and it just wasn't working, and I was getting more and more frustrated. And previously, I would have let that roll on to basically ruining half of my day. And I just remembered, look, I have a choice to be happy now. Focus on something I can control, and and it's amazing how quickly you can shift rather than there's sort of like a masochistic enjoyment in going back to states that you know what that embodiment is, if you know what I mean. Like if I know what this looks like, I know what frustration looks like, I can go back to the state, I can do a day like this, and I just accept that that's the way it is, as opposed to I can actually repattern something in my mind, in my brain, that can become stronger each time, that when I experience this, it's not to say you don't get angry or frustrated, but how long do you want to spend there? You can spend 4 hours there, or you can spend 15 minutes there, and you can flip the switch on it. Yeah. You probably learned that. You probably learned that a long time. I learned that yesterday.
It doesn't matter how much we understand things. At the end of the day, when you are in the thick of it, it does make it hard, right? Which is the reason we have so many people, like so many motivational speakers, right, all over the world, and people can't get enough of them. Is partly because the reminder is needed on a regular basis for us to know, because everything that we hear from other people, we actually know it internally, right? But sometimes we just need that whisper. It's like, yeah, I need to remind myself. And I think, to me, at the end of the day, like you said, is that it doesn't matter what how long it takes. What matters is that what are you doing about it.
Yeah. That's basically. Well, it's not going to just land in your lap. Like, those small actions each day end up building what build great structures.
Exactly, because every single action that you're taking, you are reprogramming yourself for your next self expression.
Mm.
It's also you don't know what you think you know what you want, but sometimes you actually don't. You've just got to. For me, it's just you keep chipping away at the things that you sort of. The more alignment with your heart and with your intuition, then those things will naturally come. But that could also be continually changing. And why does it need to be this thing that you? I think I find when I think it needs to look a certain way, it's generally because I have a comparison to something or someone that has done something previously, as opposed to just being in my life and living my life.
Right. It's funny because I remember something I was watching, and there was a scene about the couple, and the guy was saying to the girl, is that, it's so hard. Like, you guys are so complex that I don't know, like, what do you want? And then basically the girl responds to the guy and smiles and says, "You're actually right. We don't know what we want." So basically it was like an acknowledgement, right? And then the guy's like, wow, like, because he thought that, he's the only one who doesn't understand them, that what do they want. And she basically said, no, I truly don't know what I want, which is why you are picking that up, right? And that is
A true, yeah,
It's
a
right.
true
statement's
statement's
ever
ever
been
been
said.
said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, and you know what, like I always say that everything is time stamped, because in our world we use the word time stamped a lot. Because, like, today, I like, tangerine. Tomorrow I may say that my favorite fruit is pomegranate. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, because I have a right to change my.
Well, it's definitely more of the feminine nature. Like I think that's the beautiful thing of continually opening to life, as opposed to I'm moving toward this goal at all costs, which yeah, totally. But that's the beauty. I mean, but you need those. That's what holds the polarity. I mean, you need both. Yeah.
I mean, of course, we're using men, women versus masculine versus feminine. And these are the energies. They're very interestingly different from each other, but they're very complementary. And that the two energies, when they converge in any form, right, within internally in our body, right, we have masculine and feminine going on, because our right hemisphere is actually feminine and left is masculine. But that convergence is what keeps us. That's why I always say that you have to use all of you to decide what you want to do, right? And of course, heart center is always good, because heart ends up being the bridge, because heart knows to take care of you and everybody else that are connected to you, right? So that, to me, is important, which is why the sign of a good leader is somebody who can think about everybody and what is going to happen to them, right? Like, not think about one, but think about everybody who's involved in that decision making. And it's a very hard place to be sometimes, because every single person has opinions.
It's I want to hear your idea on AI, but I'll tell you something. I might do a short video on this, but how I've actually been using it, which I found very generative, which goes back to what you just said about leadership or making very decisions based on a much bit broader picture. So I like to go walking, and I have an AI where I talk to it, and it just transcribes your thoughts perfectly, and then it surmises it. So I then take that and I put that into whatever the strongest LLM is for the time on reasoning, and I ask it, where are my blind spots or my cognitive biases? It's amazing for that, because then it will spit out all the different things that you haven't thought of, and all the strongman argument. Yeah, so it literally, when I worked this process out, it really broke my brain, because you think, I've thought. I was thinking I'd really thought through it and trying to come thinking of the other side and why they were, but it was still somewhat egoic, like, why are they wrong and why am I right? And this just, I could feel my brain, like my skull cracking with, oh my God, like, I haven't even touched upon this viewpoint. So then I sit with that, and I actually then go to the, if it's something I want to have a view on or continually think about, I will go to like kinesiology, muscle body testing. So I'll ask if this viewpoint is coming from, is it me trying to prove a point, or is it me trying to actually understand the problem? And I'll just get simple yes or no answers, and I do that, a yes holds strong and a no will break apart. It's been really amazing for making much better decisions and understanding things. So I think as that process of just people think it slows you down, and for sure, but you get a much clearer picture of, and an empathetic, clearer picture of the lay of the land of these very complex issues that if you jump on any social media, people seem to want to have a viewpoint on with no actual, everything. Like, how can you know? Things are so complex and in depth, and unless you're embedded, you could spend your life learning one thing about one tiny minutia of a certain discipline. Yet we're sort of forced and pushed to have a viewpoints on everything these days without knowing anything about it. So I at least have the metric for myself. I go and do that if it's something I want to explore. Yeah, I think it's so. Sorry, that was more of a. What are your thoughts on how? Like, have you been delving much into it, and how do you think it fits within the broader spectrum of consciousness and potentially new life form? Like, what do you think about it?
So first of all, I think of AI as a very powerful technological evolution, right? Because especially when you start adding the quantum computing aspect of things, then it's almost like the processing speed and the amount of data. It's like there is no way AI can compete when it comes to that aspect with the human, right? So if there's anything to do with data processing, then between human and AI will always supersede big time, right? And not only that, there are a lot of different tasks that AI is doing now that AI can do way better than human, partly because it doesn't have to worry about the needs, the human needs, So, so AI is actually a great technological evolution, and I believe that we should embrace it just like any other technology. We have embraced it. The problem occurs when people become slave to the technology. Right? The technology is a tool, right? We invent technology because we have a purpose, right? Like mother, what is the phrase about the necessity is the mother of invention, right? So to me, AI has become a necessity because we keep on, doing things that requires us to need more processing power. And then in the process, AI is the next step for evolution. The problem occurs is that when we don't have clear boundary and clear intention around it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reference the movie iRobot. Because to me, iRobot was a great movie done by this great, incredible mind, Isaac Asimov. I actually have my third son is named after Isaac, mainly because of that.
Wow.
Yeah, because that movie came out and I was pregnant with him, and we were wondering what to name him. And even though I like Isaac Newton a lot, but after Isaac Asimov, I was just like blown away that how can somebody can have that type of premonition, right? Because he basically envisioned the year 2035 in iRobot, and he basically created that entire fictional novel in I think it was 1950 or something. So the point is that how can you imagine a future, and it's very well done. Like if you really look at it, 2035, which is 10 years from now, it doesn't look like that is not a possibility. Because I was in Austin recently, and the entire most of the Ubers they have now is completely autonomous.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and actually they're the one who are always more available. So I actually didn't know that either, because when I called the Uber, the autonomous Uber came, and when it came to my door, I was like, so then I told my son, I'm like, and my son really wanted me to, because he's my son, right? So he thinks that we should embrace technology without questioning it. I am an engineer, and I know that when something is not vetted, I don't want to be the guinea pig. So I did not take the Uber that was autonomous because I wanted to make sure that I trust it. And then I I realized that I had to change the setting on my phone to make sure that I only get the human driver Uber. Otherwise, by default, in Austin, if you are in a downtown or a certain area, then you're going to get autonomous Uber because they are easily available. You see the point? So it's very interesting. And then when I started interviewing all these human Uber driver, they told me that the autonomous vehicle has caused some challenges. Like some people were dropped off at the wrong place. Some people were in the loop in the parking lot where the car kept moving in a loop and it would never open the door. And then they had to call 911. So the point is that it's so
That's
10 years
funny.
from now, 10 years from now, I'm sure we'll master that, but we're not there yet. But going back to iRobot, the reason I want to say it is in that movie, of course, they showed that what can happen when things are not done right? When things are unchecked. But in that movie, of course, they showed the robot that ends up saving the world, right? So there was that interesting aspect of the binary aspect of existence, that there was the robot who ends up saving human from robot. But the thing that I wanted to read, which I need my phone for, is that there were 3 laws, okay, in that movie. And that's what my answer to your question is, that we need a good boundary, a good system, because you always need a check and balance, whether it's a human or whether it's an AI. Because anything unchecked, anything with no boundary, anything that basically is left to its own discretion is always going to have ripple effect, and some of them are not going to be good. So the 3 laws, I'm going to read it, Paul. So the first law is a robot may not injure a human or through inaction allow a human to come to harm. The second law, a robot must obey the orders given it by human beings unless such order would conflict with the first law. And then the third, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. So can you believe how incredible those 3 laws are? And they were written completely to protect human life.
Unfortunately, I'm not seeing those 3 laws implemented in what these large tech companies and the Cold War between the US and China is currently. I mean, they're already madly creating robot drones to go and kill people, and it's that side of it is they just, like, they're beautiful and they seem completely logical as well at the same time. Like, of course, if you're burgeoning some new life force that in many ways is going to outcompute people intellectually, definitely not going to say somatically or other skills that we have latent within us. They just seem like some basic stopgaps to ensure that we don't create end times for ourselves.
Right. And actually, there's so many things coming in my mind, but one of them is that I'm not concerned about AI as much as I'm concerned about human, because to me,
That's
AI is
very
an
true.
extension of human, right? And
Yeah.
human are the one that made it, a priority for the AI to become more prevalent in this world. So those human who are doing that, if their intention is authentic, then we will get a good outcome. So it all goes back to the intention, because at the end of the day, like, if you're going to make something, then what you're making is going to be as good as you are.
Do you feel, though, something I sort of thought, I started going in the process of thinking, I looked at the people who were positing consciousness toward, like, talking about AGI and it's going to come, I think Sam Altman said it's already, burgeoning. It's going to be a slow roll as opposed to some breakthrough moment. And he was saying it's already happened. And then it got me to thinking, like, the idea of, we don't even understand human consciousness from the centralized scientific lens. We have no idea, and we've studied it for, sort of ardently for a long time, but say like the last 20 years it's become more mainstreamed in scientific study. Yet we haven't even, like, we may understand where certain things in the brain fire and don't fire to what we used to understand, but that's not explaining consciousness. That's explaining some mechanisms of the mind, of the brain, not the mind, sorry. And here we are talking and positing that, like, we've created this new life form, yet we don't even understand ourselves. and again, it made me kind of angry again because it's that same mentality that saw so much ancient knowledge purposefully destroyed by, like, let's just take the Catholic Church, but getting rid of burning witches who were just truth tellers or storages of these ancient practices for self-healing and self-discovery. And then let's just take indigenous peoples the world over who have been obliterated because they don't fit this consumer materialistic lens, or look, even going further back, they just were taking up land that people wanted. But it's that same, I'm going to swear, it's the same fucking arrogance of, I understand reality and I'm now going to create this thing that understands reality the way I see it, as opposed to having zero inquisitiveness toward somatic practices that are have so much more depth and potential within them than just the intellect alone. So, and that's what worries me. Not same again, not the AI itself. I think the AI could be very beneficial if it doesn't have the drivers of fear and scarcity that so many people do have. If it doesn't have that, then why would it reason to do the crazy things that humans do in the name of those two things? But that's my great worry, is that it excludes the body is an intelligent thing that thinks in and of itself. Like serotonin was produced in the gut. We know of people who have had perfectly functional lives, and it's discovered later on they were missing 80% of their brain, like quite serious. So that shows there's this field of consciousness that we're interacting with all the time, and maybe AI can get there, but the people who are making it, I don't see a lot of embodiment, let's just call it that way.
I agree, because the thing is that there are majority of the people who are into all these extreme things, they live through the external, right? Which is the reason they're able to create all these incredible things. And what we need to bring is the balance of going internal as well, right? Because when you live through external, then you get all your instant gratification through external world, and then in the process you do more. You can create a mess. And when you were talking about drone, I wanted to mention to you that just recently, like I think a month ago, India and Pakistan were pretty much at the verge of war, and
I was there, by the way. I was in India when I landed the day the rockets got fired into Pakistan. Completely. It ruined my trip entirely because everyone thought we were going to have a war. Yeah.
I'm from Pakistan. My entire family were there. So right away I checked in, right? And I talked to my brother. I had a long conversation. And because of the way the scarcity mindset and the fact that the people of Pakistan have been very much kept always in a little bit of like a fear-based life, because they don't even have a basic necessity. Plus the leader that they really loved, Imran Khan, has been beaten to death and tortured and kept away. And then the leader they have right.
Oh my God, I loved Imran Khan too. Yeah, I knew him from cricket.
Imran Khan has been so, they have completely squeezed everything out of him, and he still is alive. And people of Pakistan love him, but he's not the leader, and he's still being tortured. He's still in prison. And then the leader that is there, they don't like him, but he's the leader. So you can see that already that's a pretty big problem. And then they have India attacking them. And then when I talked to my brother, he told me about drone. The drone were used to attack women and children who were in the malls. Okay, and there were people died, right? And these people were died. They were just simple civilians who were just out of their home at the wrong time, at the wrong place, and they died, right? So, and somebody who was using the drone is probably somebody who truly plays a lot of video game and thinks of this as like
as a game.
And they may not even know that what they're doing with this drone is really killing real human life, because it's a need to know basis. Remember, anything to do with military is always a need to know basis. So God knows how they're convincing people to kill people without having any kind of conscience.
Well, the Indian it was really interesting being in India, and my just the spin that they put on that. I mean, they said it harked back to the terrorist attacks that the Indian tourists up near Kashmir, was it, where they got anyway. But the way the Indian media spun it was, we only attacked military sites alone, and it's just like, oh no, totally, you can't believe any. This is the thing. It's like you just. since there's no such thing as a clean military war or strikes, like there's always innocent people killed, and it's always the poor innocent people who are the fodder for these people's games, and then everyone's.
And just imagine, Paul, that if these leaders truly understand that we are all one in other dimension, right? We're all one in other dimension. So only in the 3D we have to live with this separation just so that we can figure things out. But if you really understand that everybody's one and everybody's a mirror to you, then this whole concept of war between countries makes no sense.
It makes sense from the paradigm that we're in, but yeah, when you go there, it's completely. I had such a moment actually when I just to think, because I landed in, where the hell was I? Why can't I remember? It will come to me. But it was a thing of getting off the plane, and I went to get something. I went to buy some shopping, and I walked past these kids fishing out bits of useful things potentially from rubbish in India. And then I had, I'm obviously a Westerner, so I get targeted by, they call them professional beggars, but the Indians do, or the people, the locals. I'm like, well, yeah, but there's still a need. Like you might look down on them because of whatever ideology you have about caste systems or whatever it may be. But I had a real moment where this woman when you're looking into someone's eyes, and you just get that real, like, I could be you and you could be me. There's absolutely zero difference between your life circumstances have led you here and mine have led me to where I am. And that real humility in the face of creation and being, it's hard to word, but it's incredibly beautiful and heartbreaking all simultaneously that even exists, and how sort of useless I felt in the face of it. And how the world could be very different, like not utopia, but there's so much we can do on an individual level and on a larger scale that we think we almost look at the world and go, well, that's too difficult to solve. People are like this way and there's nothing I can do. But it's like, yeah, but you could give this one person some money. You could save this one animal. You could, and that is the ripple effect I think you mentioned earlier that does change things. It's not just throwing your arms up and saying, well, it's all lost.
Exactly. And my whole thing is that what I'm learning now is that every single experience or people or anything that come in contact with you, in every single moment, you need to start paying attention to those interactions in a much more deeper way, because the more deeply you look at it and the more you live in that present, I think you're going to become more aware of your essence. Right? And because whatever you've created, there's a reason for it. And when you try to change it drastically, which I did actually a week ago, I was about to do something really crazy. And then the good thing is whenever I'm about to do something that could be crazy, I feel like that my non-physical team is always making sure that at the end of the day, I am protected and I end up being saved from myself, right? Like that's what I would say. So I'm very happy about that, because I always make a prayer. Whenever I do something, I always have an intention. So that way the intention becomes my protection.
So this is perfect. So let's go back to your idea of affirmations, which are lesser for me about the affirmation itself, but more about coding within you the belief that you do have external help. And how, look, even if you're very left logical minded and you're hearing this and you probably haven't gotten this far if you are, but if you're thinking there's no such thing as external help from the other side, but affirmations only work when you fully begin to embody the thing that you're talking about. So how do you use affirmations? How can people use them, and what has worked for you? And what results have you seen through using affirmations or prayers or however?
Yeah, so the thing is that the affirmation is a reminder, right? So like one of the affirmation I say is that I'm an interdimensional beacon of light. I say that every day, right? When I wake up. And when you start saying some of these affirmation, it just becomes, it's because, you're a programmable human craft, right? So it becomes like something you would just say it naturally when you feel like it. And to me, these affirmation reminds me of my center, right? It just brings me to my center. So to me, like I have always used affirmation, like even like at night I have an affirmation, which kind of like I actually even make an affirmation at night if I need some question answered. I would say that, show it to me through my dream, show it, help me remember through my dream what is my purpose in life, right? Or give me a glimpse of the future that gives me an assurance of where I need to go. So I kind of say whatever comes in my heart, but ultimately my dream will become like my dream will give me, like, it will show me people. For example, it will show me a friend or something and what I'm doing with that person. And then whenever somebody comes in my dream, I kind of do give them a value in my life, because I believe that that is means that we have a deeper connection. Because your dream is a projection of your subconscious mind. So whatever you see in your dream, it's almost like a assurance. So going back to your question about how has the affirmation helped you, I believe that I believe that everything that you say to yourself, like, because we are constantly doing the self talk all the time, right? Because of our mind and our inner dialogue. And that to me is an affirmation. So that's why you have to be very aware of what you're saying to yourself.
Mm.
And I believe that the reason that I stay out of trouble, like I mentioned earlier, is partly because of this affirmation that I have, right? Like right before I was about to do something, I made a affirmation that please, help me succeed in this if it serves for the purpose of higher good.
Mm.
Right? So anyone can say that to anything, right? I said that and then I went and did it. Basically, bottom line is that I was planning on moving somewhere and I offered on a house, and then the offer got rejected. So then I even made the offer higher, which was completely against my original will. And I did that, and offer got rejected again. And at the end of the day, I had made a prayer, right? I had made an intention. And at the time, I was like, wow. But then 2 days after, I was so grateful that it happened the way it did. You see my point? Because at the
Mm.
time, I wasn't able to see what was really good for me.
Mm.
Because we are human and we do get bogged down by the limited perspective.
It comes back to we're not actually we for me it's that thing of like we think we know what's best for us when actually we kind of don't in a lot of ways. And the more we can surrender to the flow, the more that what is actually truly good for us. It's like with everything, like sometimes you think the worst, as I was saying earlier, with the struggle to get where you think you want to go is often the times you look back on, and the things, whether it's a relationship or a friendship that's ends or it's difficult and you think at the time it's the end of the world, but ultimately you look back in a couple of years and you know, oh, that was you pay gratitude to that and you wish people well, but ultimately it was best for everybody. And you can't see it at the time.
Yeah, because where you're going is equally important as what you're becoming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to me, a lot of time people
Well,
completely lose sight of what they're becoming. They're all
it's probably
focused
more
on where they're
important.
going. And I'm like, if you're going to stay alive by eating every other human that comes in your way, then what's the use of your being alive?
Mm.
Well, it's the lessons. Yeah, well, no, but it's ultimately those lessons of what you're becoming, and but we're sort of indoctrinated to it's all geared since you're young to where you're going. So it's back to front because you can, and look where you're going is the becoming. Look, yeah, they're intertwined because you want to be doing something which is expanding you and pushing you to become. Uh,
To me, and I say that because I really mean it. And I feel like a lot of time people lose the sight of that, right? They are so focused on how it appears to be than how
Mm.
you feel in the process.
so for someone, no, sorry, no, I was just going to say for someone who has, say, tried not manifestation, but affirmations, and they haven't necessarily worked. Is there any sort of pointers that you give people? I mean, I think one of the things that stood out to me was when you said making the affirmation more about if this serves the highest good, whether it's for yourself or everybody in general. I think that's a far more cohesive way that loosens the grip of, say, I am a multi-millionaire, I'm attracting money. Like nothing, that's not even like that. That's fine. If you want that form of abundance, that's completely fine. But if you're saying like I'm a multi-millionaire because I'm serving hundreds of thousands of people and helping them achieve X, that's a very different place than I'm just doing this because I want it. It comes from a like, I'm creating this because I'm in service. I've found those affirmations a lot more powerful.
What makes it powerful is you're believing in it. So either way, because at the end of the day, even you becoming a multimillionaire by helping other people, or you become multimillion without adding the helping of the people, both of them are equal value because it's all a perspective anyway. So then it boils down to which one do you believe in?
Well, hopefully you are helping people and not just doing a crypto scam.
But that's what it is, right? Because it makes you feel good because you don't want to do something that makes you feel like selfish or whatever. So at the end of the day, you have to feel really, really good about it. And you have to be able to embody it, like you said, right? So you have to own it, you have to embody it, you have to believe in it. So the belief is the part that only you can truly come in alignment with. Nobody can make you believe in anything. You are the only one who gets to decide. And that to me is where the free will comes in, because you get to decide what to believe in, and your belief does affect your reality.
Comes back again for me too, the process, like, and how much you want something. So when it comes to healing, for example, we've been so indoctrinated to believe that taking a pill or having someone cut you open is where the healing occurs, as opposed to if the pill's doing anything, it's because the body's healing itself. Or if someone cuts you out and removes something, your body still heals itself. So actually reframing it like that's been very helpful for me, because I'm like, no, it's just your body. So let's just try and create the neurochemistry to actually heal itself anyway. But it's you might believe that intellectually, but to believe that on a cellular level takes a whole other kind of practice. But I found just continually practicing and getting yourself in a state where you do eventually believe it, things start to happen. So it's also not just expecting to say it a few times and it didn't work. You've got to really invest in it, like anything.
You know what? I think more than staying in that path, what I'm saying is that always, like, whatever you want, you have to understand why you want it, right? Which is where your intention comes in. So if you don't have that very clear in your mind and you're still staying on the surface level and doing, because you watch some movie where it said affirmation works and you're like doing it, even though you don't feel it and even though you don't understand it, and that's why all of these things have all these different parameters that you have to bring it all home to make it a reality, right? Like in my case, for example, growing up, I prayed and I wanted to speak English, and I prayed in my prayer that I would love to speak English fluently. I was kind of praying for it, but I was also doing my work by looking at the dictionary in English and doing all these things. And at the end of the day, I do end up marrying a guy who brings me to America, and then I had to learn to speak English, you see. But I created that experience because I did not give up on myself. So as long as I remember being conscious, so probably for over 15 years, I had to pray every day, and I had to believe that my prayer is coming, because if I'm praying means I truly believe in it, right? So in a way, my prayer became my affirmation, and I ended up attracting the experience that truly brought me into a place where I had to learn the language that I was so dying to learn. So that is a classic example of your question, that has your affirmation became your, became your reality. And and it went beyond my affirmation because I wanted to speak English fluently. I did not expect to become so fluent in English that it's not even a qualm, like it's not even a question anymore. Like it's something that it's like more my language than any other language.
You speak English better than most people who speak English.
But that is the amazing part of the whole story, right? So yeah. So anyways, we'll have to wrap it up. But
no, I was going to say it's been really wonderful catching up. I really want to speak to you again, Shehnaz. I think I'd like to catch up with you every 6 months just for the good vibes. But anything you want to leave, anything you'd like to leave people with anything that's didn't even touch upon your rather trivial job working for NASA, but let's not. It's too trivial. I'm kidding, obviously, but yeah.
Well, first of all, is that thank you for this very candid conversation and the very fact that we truly are going in places that we didn't even plan on going. And that is what is needed at this time for people to exit from whatever their complacent patterns are, because it's time that everybody starts looking at what is really what is the most important thing in their life, right? It's very important to know that, and who are the most important people in their life, and be very grateful that they are actually around you, and show them love and care, and exchange your authentic self with them, and do your best to not lose them. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that is real in this world is people, right? It's people who are not NPC, the people with the soul, the people who have a heart beating for you. And those people, I am finding that they're rare. They're becoming rare and rare, because as we are getting into this Wally world where pretty much all our entertainment is through the, through the words of bits and bytes, in that process, you can easily live a very, you can live a life that you think is fulfilling. But to me, if you are not connected with loving human who cares for you, then you might as well be an AI yourself.
Yeah, well, you're not existing really. You're just skirting across the surface of the potential for expression and being, which is being a human being, which is being vulnerable, authentic, taking that chance that you might lose someone because you are being who you really are. But as you get older, I mean, certainly I've found the people who are meant to be there, they stick, and they really stick. Yeah. Shehnaz, oh, sorry, you were about to say something, and I was going to wrap you up.
Statement is that we are broadcasting who we are in every moment. And it's time that everybody broadcast their optimum frequency of love.
Where can people find you? On that?
So people can find me on my website. I have my book information on the website, The Quantum Being. And I also have, in the month of March, I was public speaker at Gaia and Next Level Soul.
Oh, wow.
Both of them were very powerful speeches. I did meet Veda Austin there as well. And both of these speeches are available on my website if anybody wants to check it out. They were very powerful. And, I am wishing everybody the best in this journey of evolution.
Shehnaz, thank you for your time. I'm going to repeat what one of the comments under the video of our last conversation, where it was just Shehnaz, stay awesome. So Shehnaz, stay awesome. Appreciate you so much. Thank you for your time.
Yes, you're welcome.